get into this industry, you know, as any entrepreneur, it's kind of like, well, you know, can it be done better? And the answer was, you know, why do you build it this way? And the answer was, well, that's because that's the way we've always done it. Instead of, oh, because it's the best way to do it. So really what we're focused on is the whole discussion about brain trauma and how the surface is an integral part of this conversation. It's not just about helmets or mouth guards or things like that. The surface is the one piece of equipment that every program is going to use. And now that dialogue is happening more and more, where people are really questioning, you know, are we doing the best for our athletes? You know, if you throw a cheerleader up and she comes down and lands on her head, well, you know, kind of what's that all about? And how are we addressing it? Chris has got piles and piles of statistics, so I won't spend a lot of time on this. But what we know now, which we did not know 10 years ago, and you know, if you think about the synthetic turf industry, I'm going to put myself on a timer because I've been accused of being a talker. You know, what we know now that we didn't know 10 years ago is a much higher level of incidence of brain trauma occurring with head-to-surface impacts. You know, it's the natural evolution of an industry. You know, 10 years back in about 2004 and 5 and 6 was when artificial turf really started to gain a foothold as a validated technology in the industry, in sports. You know, the industry was putting in, back in about 2007, 2008, that's when the synthetic turf industry started putting in about 800 fields a year. And actually, one correction to Paul's, there's over 100 million square feet of synthetic turf installed in athletic fields alone every year, which equates to about 1,500 fields at 75,000 square feet each, in rough numbers, so it gives you a little more than 100 million feet. And so it's a big industry. A white paper was done, which Chris can talk about. 1 in 5 concussions is happening because of head-to-surface impacts. So one of the things that's bringing this to light much more ferociously than in the past is that the statistics are mounting that, you know, is it a coincidence that there's been this explosion in the use of artificial turf, and we've seen a 92% increase in concussions over that same period. I'm not sitting here blaming artificial turf for the concussion problem, but there's got to be a correlation. So the issue, and where we spend most of our time, is in youth sports. The volume of athletic fields is not built at the NFL, and it's not built at the NCAA. It's built at high schools and middle schools. And it's pretty interesting. As Paul said, we did a project that the Boulder Valley School District converted all 7 of their middle schools to artificial turf. So, you know, we're seeing it now in a much broader age range than we used to. The issue is, with youth sports, it's kind of this perfect storm that sets these kids up for brain trauma with any kind of impact, because their brains are more fragile, which Chris will talk about. Your head-to-body ratios are different, you're weaker, you don't have the skills, you don't have the trainers. So there's a lot of factors that increase this probability that Jeff was talking about brain trauma with impacts to the surface, and impacts to anything else for that matter. You know, why is it important? Well, you know, there was a study done at the University of North Carolina that, you know, the impacts with artificial turf resulted in more severe trauma than the same level of impact with natural grass. Our big thing has been, what is the benchmark that we should be chasing? And I was at a conference, in fact it might have been an ASLA conference about 5 years ago, and this landscape artist, this engineer said, you know, Dan, the artificial turf industry always said it's as good as the best natural grass, right? I mean, that's been the kind of MO of how artificial turf has been sold. Oh, it's as good as great natural grass, but you can play on it 80 hours a week, you don't have to water it, you don't have to mow it, and it's always green. So the question begs itself, well then what is natural grass? You know, how does that behave? There's really, when we look at characterizing a surface, the thing that's happening that's a big shift now in the industry is that we're moving way beyond GMAX. The United States is the only country in the world that used one test that said, in 6 locations basically, that's, or what is it, 6 locations, that says your field is safe. You know, I've got 2 acres of artificial turf that I can impact in an area this big in 6 locations and say, oh, it's good to go. And by the way, a couple of those locations are discretionary, so if you don't like the results, that you're getting at the 50-yard line, you go over the sidelines and you impact a nice soft area, and it's a field average Gmax as your result, right? So, so we really look at, there's three different impacts that happen on the surface, which is your head, your body, and your foot. And those three basic parts of your body are very different impacts. There's different sizes, masses, velocities, and so there's three different tools we use to test those. Jeff talked about the middle one, which is the Gmax tester, and that's an F-355 A missile. So that's a flat missile dropped from 2 feet. The one that was just adopted recently by ASTM is now the F-355E missile, and that is a curved head form drop missile. And if you design, how many people in here design playgrounds, for example? A lot of you. So you're familiar with the HIT test because it's the critical fall height test that you have to do when somebody says, I want an 8-foot critical fall height. That test is now being used as a determiner of safety in artificial turf. And that's new news. That standard was only, that test method was only adopted about 6 months ago. And then on the far right, you have vertical deformation. And the vertical deformation is your foot impact. So basically, at the risk of having my voice be loud enough, you've got your head, your body, and your foot. And so we want to look at